over the weekend, Lily Allen was getting absolutely eviscerated by activists all over Twitter because she admitted publicly on a podcast that she is returning her dog. She got this dog back in 2021, just for background. The dog's name was actually Mary, ironically.
Ironically enough.
She is returning this dog or rehoming it, something like that, because it has, quote, ruined her life. She says this dog has ruined her life.
I mean,
ultimately,
you have to be completely disconnected from the internet to not understand that this is going to get a crazy reaction.
Yes.
Like, maybe I guess she just doesn't pay attention to politics, but Kristi Noem's story wasn't that long ago.
And it's still striking a nerve.
Yeah.
So obviously people value dogs more than human beings these days. They do. So you're going to get dragged for saying anything like this. Here's what she said on the podcast. We actually did adopt a dog already, but then it ate my passport, and so I took her back to the home. She ate all 3 of our passports, and they had our visas, and I cannot tell you how much money it cost me to get everything replaced because it was during COVID.
Oh my goodness, her life is so difficult.
An absolute logistical nightmare because the father of my children, her ex-husband, lives in England. I couldn't get them back to see their dad for 4 months, 5 months, because this effing dog had eaten the passports. I just couldn't look at her. I was like, you've ruined my life.
You made my life mildly more difficult for a couple of months. You've ruined my life.
Passports weren't the only thing she ate. She was a very badly behaved dog, and I really tried very hard with her, but it just didn't work out, and the passports were the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
You know what it is? It's like, have you ever seen that meme where the dog actually eats the kid's homework and he says, "No one's gonna believe you ever"?
Yeah,
that's literally what this is.
Situation.
She's like, look, like they're like, "Where's your passport?" "My dog ate it." Yeah, that didn't work in elementary school either.
Her ex-husband is like, "Why can't I see my kids?" She's like, "The dog ate their passports. What am I supposed to do?" It
was actually like a dodge. It was like a power play during divorce proceedings.
So she was getting some really insane backlash. People were calling her a pet abuser and sociopathic for her decision here. I mean, ultimately, she did do what she needed to do, right?
Yeah.
If she didn't love the dog and didn't have it in her to take care of the dog, then she returned the dog where it would be taken care of.
I suppose
they would say don't adopt it in the first place if you knew that you didn't have what it took to take care of it
like
properly.
You should maybe what you do is every time you go to adopt a pet now, what you do as the person in charge of the adoption agency is you say, I want you to picture something. You're going to England for 4 months or in a month, and your dog eats your passport and makes it impossible for you to travel for the next 4 months. What do you do?
Do you disown the dog?
Do you disown the dog, or do you
forgive
the dog and love it anyways? And if you don't choose to love it anyways, you choose not to adopt it.
I've noticed just people make very flippant decisions about adopting animals, not understanding the consequences.
That's why they really...
And the time and the money invested.
If I remember correctly, like these agencies really, really argue against giving them as pets ever, because you never know whether the person you're giving the pet to as a gift is going to actually take care of it.
Well, what's crazy is David Arbor, her husband, the actor in Stranger Things, is not getting raked over the coals. It's just her, even though they had both adopted the dog together.
Okay. Well, she told the story.
Yeah, she's the one who delivered the message.
See, this is where men tend to be smarter, right? Like women love to.
Man would have kept that shit to himself.
Women love to trauma dump the worst shit in their lives and then wonder why people have weird reactions to it.
Women love to have a podcast.
It's like, have you ever seen, like, every once in a while this will happen where a guy will say something like this, and then somebody online will be like, you would have to waterboard me to get that story out of me. Why are you volunteering it to anyone?
Yeah, lots of toxic oversharing going on here. But she noticed that a lot of people were sending her hate and backlash, so she clarified herself in this novel of a post, even tagging Peta, thanking them for adding fuel to the fire. Very responsible of you, Peta. We hate Peta, right?
Actually, no. I've kind of come around to it. The trolling, as it was, if you hate PETA, it should be more for the actual, like, don't they like take in what they actually do to dogs, right? Animals. But their social media, which I used to hate, now I at least understand that half the time they're trolling, and it comes skilled. And it comes off fairly well. But you should hate PETA for all of the animals that they've killed, right?
Right. So here's what she said. This is the part of the podcast that the tabloids decided not to quote with their articles about me dumping my puppy, saying that she tried very hard for a long time with it. People have been furiously reacting to a deliberately distorted cobbling of quotes designed to make people angry. I've received some really abhorrent messages, including death threats. Some of the most disgusting comments have been all over my social media channels, and I'm not really surprised because this is exactly what those articles are designed to do.
I mean, animals are a very big sore spot for a lot of people. Like she could do something, like she could have forgot her kid in an airport and it wouldn't have gotten the backlash that.
Right, exactly. That's what pisses me off is the hypocrisy here.
She could literally pull a Home Alone and leave her kids somewhere like in a foreign country.
Yeah.
And people would be, she's a mom. Things happen. Being a mom's the hardest job in the world.
Things happen.
Yeah.
Can't judge.
Yeah.
You never been in their situation. But that's what pisses me off is like, when you see a news headline about some woman throwing her newborn baby in a dumpster, people will blame the healthcare system. But when Lily Allen responsibly rehomes her dog that she tried to train for multiple years, she's a sociopath.
She just shouldn't have told the story.
She shouldn't have told the story, but people shouldn't also have this insane obsession with pets. Especially dogs as substitute human companions or children.
There's just weird blind spots that people have. It's kind of like whenever somebody in the NFL eventually gets in trouble for beating their wife, right? Or something like that. Mm-hmm. Nobody says anything, but what's his name gives a speech at a Christian college and at a Catholic college and everyone's loses their mind.
Right.
Right? Pick and choose your outrage.
Yeah, it says everything about the people who are angry.
And there is right now, because there's what did we just see the other day? 45% of women are childless, right? So there is a lot of sublimating.
Or will be by a certain year, I forget what it was.
There's a lot of sublimating that care and affection that you have for your children onto pets now.
I mean, even scarier than that, using a dog as a substitute for a child, is I think a lot of women are using dogs as substitutes for husbands. Is that crazy to say?
In what way?
Is that crazy? That they get a gigantic, fighting dog.
Yeah.
As a protector.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and they sleep in the same bed as it.
I love those channels where it's it's like bragging about how your dog's gonna stop an intruder. I'm like, you can do this. I'm
weird.
like, that's cool and all, but you could also just have a gun and own
fits
a firearm.
right in your hand, and it doesn't slobber, and you don't need to feed it, you don't need to bathe it, nothing at all. But they wouldn't agree with you on that.
No, and this really just does go back to the fact that women, when you take women to these interviews, they're just bound to tell some story.
Well, this is her podcast that she used as a platform to make herself look bad. So lessons are learned.
They're women just love to tell stories that are eventually going to get them, dunked on. Mm-hmm. Or at least men will never understand the desire to be so forthright with stuff that's so personal.
There's also self-disclosing journalism about your dating life.
Yeah.
This woman I saw published multiple articles that were why can't I find a good man? Also, my hookup gave me genital warts.
And then they're why I'm not ashamed.
Yeah, why I've forgiven myself. We were literally talking about that last week.
Look, as I say multiple times a week on this podcast, there's nothing a woman is more ready to do at any given moment than to forgive herself for her mistakes.
We got a 20, right?
Yep.
Who's this from?
Potatoes for Seamus.
I don't see it anywhere.
It's right there. It's
I don't see it.
Right, just check on this. Can you read it from the screen over there?
Potatoes for Seamus said, Brett, picture yourself. You are... Wait, what?
I don't know.
Inglets?
I don't know what that means.
Me nourishing olives, but you got to the pantry only to find that Mocha has derped all the olives. Whatever will Brett do? Also, when's the Lore Lodge coming back on We Want Aiden? That was a confusing super chat.
Thank you for that, Seamus. Potatoes for Seamus. But Mocha probably, since olives are good, Mocha probably doesn't like olives because Mocha is bad.
So true.
Yeah.
Aiden, I'm sure he'll come back at some point
eventually.
Soon.
But yes, I think a good rule of thumb is like, you know how they always used to talk about, and I think me and you've had this discussion, right? When you're in a good mood and you make plans and then later your mood changes and you just suddenly don't want to engage in those plans anymore. That's a pretty common thing, right?
I've never experienced
that. You've never understood that?
Never.
When I was still using, that was a very big thing. Now, not so much. You make plans, you keep your plans. It's important. But when you're on a podcast, there's an emotional up that comes with, telling stories, being in front of a camera. And then maybe you just tell a story. And then when you're done, you're like, oh, why did I do that? Like, I should have kept that to myself. Like, maybe
also never experienced
what she should do is be like, does this story benefit me at all in public? I still can't believe Kristi Noem volunteered that story in a book. Her story in a book. That's insane.
Yeah. Well, most people just didn't look into the context. What was the context?
I don't think it matters. I think what you should do is operate on what is the worst possible headline that could be made out of this.
Right, exactly.
And then just base it off that.
But also don't let journalists run your life based on what you're allowed to say, It's in your power how you react to it. If people are going to lie about some shit that you said, that's their problem.
Is there anything in telling this story that's so important that you don't just keep it? Like, I understand your point, like that, but now we're striving into like my truth territory. Like, I got to tell people because it's my truth to share. No.
Sometimes you're oversharing.
That is true.
And it never needed to be.
It's like, does it really need to be there? Right?
No podcast needs to exist anyway.
Correct.
So.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.